Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle, and this is my TBR video for Historathon 2021. I was so excited when I saw these announcement videos go up. Historathon is a month-long readathon in February where we read all things historical fiction. And I enjoy historical fiction. I read a ton of historical mystery, but I do also read historical fiction, and so this readathon is right up my alley. I'm going to include in the description box below links to the announcement videos. This readathon is hosted by Angie from Science Mama and Amanda from the Curly Readers. So please go check out their announcement videos. They are fabulous booktubers. Check out their channels in general. But their announcement videos are great. There's a lot going on with this readathon, including this fantastic bingo card. Now, I printed mine out black and white, but if you look at on their channels and see, it's this fantastic kind of brown. It's really cool. So it's a month-long readathon, all things historical fiction, and this great bingo card has some prompts. And I have found some books that fulfill these prompts, and I tried to find books that were just from my shelves. I have a lot of books that I own but have not read yet. So that was one of my goals for this readathon. There is a group read called The Yellow Bird Sings by Jennifer Rossner. Now, if I can get that book from the library, then I'll participate in the group read, and if not, I'll just stick with these books that I own. So here we go with the prompts and the books that I have found to fulfill those prompts. A book set in a place you have visited. Well, I was excited about this one because this is a book that's been on my TBR for a while now that I've been wanting to get to, and this is The Women in the Castle by Jessica Shattuck. Now, this is set in Germany, and I have been to Germany. I spent 6 weeks in Germany in 1994, I believe. 94. Yes, and it was fantastic. And so, The Women in the Castle is a post-World War II novel about 3 women. And so it is set in a Bavarian castle. And the women are all widows. So, we have Marianne, who the castle belongs to her husband. Her husband was a resistor who was murdered during the July 20th, 1944 failed plot to assassinate Hitler. And so she goes back to her husband's castle, but she takes with her some other widows. So she made a promise to him that she would protect the wives of other resistance fighters that he fought with. And so she goes and finds Martin, who is the son of her childhood friend, and then they go to Berlin and find his mother, and then they also collect Anya and her 2 boys, and these people all go to this castle and try to kind of survive after the war, and it just sounds really interesting. All right, prompt number 2, a multi-generational book. I had a hard time trying to find this because a lot of historical fiction books are really long, and there are 9 prompts here, and I did not want to commit myself to too many really long books, or I would never fulfill all these prompts. I would never get them all read in February. And so even though I had some great options, they were just too long. So I ended up finding King's Royal by John Quigley. Now, first of all, this is an awesome TV show tie-in cover. The BBC did a 10-part series of this book, and so this is the tie-in cover for this series, and this guy has the most impressive set of mutton chops I've ever seen. Okay, so this book was published in 1975, and it is about a family. And so I'm counting this as multi-generational because this is a book about a father and his son and his daughter. And so the bitter family struggles, illicit passions, and checkered fortunes of a Scottish dynasty. A tempestuous narrative that sweeps from the beauty of the Highlands to the gloom of Victorian Glasgow. Fergus King, the father who dragged his family out of poverty on the profits of his drinking houses. Gwen, the lovely daughter deserted by a faithless husband. And Robert, the son whose thwarted love for a girl he cannot wed fires a fierce ambition to build a whiskey empire called King's Royal. Yeah, that sounds interesting. All right, a book about a war that is not World War II. We all know, those of us who read historical fiction, that there is a plethora of World War II historical fiction. So I thought this was a great prompt. And this led me back to a book that I had pulled for a readathon that I did in August and September. Nightingale, what was it called? The Nightingale August Challenge, which turned into the Nightingale Seacole September Challenge. But anyway, and I never got around to reading that, so I'm going to give it another shot here in February. This is Paths of Destiny by E.V. Thompson. This is a historical fiction set in Cornwall in 1854. So it starts in Cornwall. The main character is Alice Rowe, and she falls in love with a boy called Gideon Davy, who ends up going over to the Crimea during the Crimean War, and she follows him there. So this is a war that is not World War II. It's the Crimean War, which is a fascinating time period. And yeah, I'm looking forward to giving this one a shot. Fourth prompt, a book by a diverse author. Now, this one, I'm actually doing one book to fulfill two prompts. So a book by a diverse author and a historical fiction subgenre. I've already mentioned that I love historical mysteries, and this is a series that I have been reading, and I've been wanting to get to Smoke and Ashes because this is the third in the series by Abir Mukherjee. And this is set in India in 1921. And so this is a historical fiction subgenre, which is historical mystery. And it is also a book by a diverse author. Here's a picture of the author. And so this is a great series that I've been really enjoying. This is now the third book in the series. The main character is Captain Sam Wyndham. He fought during World War I. And he is also a police officer, and so he gets sent to India, and he is a police officer in Calcutta. He is, of course, experiencing trauma and etc. from the First World War, part of which includes for him an opium addiction that he is struggling with, that he is trying to keep quiet. He stumbles across a corpse in an opium den in this book, and then he comes across a second body bearing the same injuries. He is convinced that there's a deranged killer on the loose. However, revealing his presence in the opium den could cost him his career. So, as Wyndham and Sergeant Surendranath Banerjee set out to solve the two murders, Wyndham must tread carefully, keeping his personal demons secret before someone else shows up dead. All right, and then we have the sixth prompt is read a book with no people on the cover. This was also a bit tricky because people on the cover is a pretty popular way to go for covers, but I found Year of Wonders by Geraldine Brooks. This is a novel of the plague. This has also been a book I've been wanting to read for a while now. When an infected bolt of cloth carries plague from London to an isolated mountain village, a housemaid named Anna Frith emerges as an unlikely heroine and healer. Through Anna's eyes, we follow the story of the plague year, 1666, as her fellow villagers make an extraordinary choice. Convinced by a visionary young minister, they elect to quarantine themselves within the village boundaries to arrest the spread of the disease. But as death reaches into every household, faith frays. When villagers turn from prayers to murderous witch hunting, Anna must confront the deaths of family, the disintegration of her community, and the lure of illicit love. As she struggles to survive, a year of plague becomes instead a year of wonders. So yeah, that just sounds really, really interesting. And the 7th prompt is to read a book set during winter. Now this was also actually really hard to find because something else that is prominent in historical fiction are epics, or like stories that take a long time to tell. They cover months or years, and so some of the story might be set in winter, but maybe not all of it or even very much of it. So I found The Winter Sea by Susanna Kearsley. First of all, it's got winter in the title, so that's a good sign, right? And when I started flipping through, on the very first page, I read, "So on that winter morning when it all began," and I thought, yep, that sounds good. We'll go with this one. So, when best-selling author Carrie McClellan visits the windswept ruins of Slains Castle, she is enchanted by the stark and beautiful Scottish landscape. The area is strangely familiar to her, but she puts aside her faint sense of unease to begin her new novel, using the castle as her setting and one of her own ancestors, Sophia, as her heroine. Then Carrie realizes her writing is taking on a life of its own, and the lines between fact and fiction become increasingly blurred. As Sophia's memories draw Carrie more deeply into the intrigue of 1708, she discovers a captivating love story lost in time. And then the final prompt is to read a book with a person's name in the title, and so I chose Katherine of Aragon, The True Queen by Alison Weir. This is a series that I've wanted to start this year as well, so this was as good a time as any. She is writing a series called The Six Tudor Queens, and of course Katherine of Aragon was the first queen of Henry VIII, a princess of Spain and the youngest daughter of the powerful monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella. Catalina is a coveted prize for a royal marriage, and Arthur, Prince of Wales, heir to the English throne, has won her hand. But tragedy strikes, and Catalina, now Princess Katherine, is betrothed to the future Henry VIII. She must wait for his coming of age, an ordeal that tests her resolve, casts doubt on her trusted confidants, and turns her into a virtual prisoner. But Catherine's patience is rewarded when she becomes Queen of England. The affection between Katherine and Henry is genuine, but forces beyond her control threaten to rend her marriage, and indeed the nation, apart. Henry has fallen under the spell of Catherine's maid of honor, Anne Boleyn. Now Katherine must be prepared to fight to the end, if God wills it, for her faith, her legitimacy, and her heart. So there you have it. That is my TBR for Historathon 2021, and I am super excited to participate and to get to some of these books that have been sitting around for quite a while, if I'm honest. Now, since I don't do TBRs, I got one more book that I just wanted to tell you about that I am also reading in February. It is not historical fiction, it is actually history, but I wanted to tell you about it. I'm reading it during the month of February. I'm doing it as a buddy read with the fantastic Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf, and we are reading House of Treason by Robert Hutchinson, The Rise and Fall of a Tudor Dynasty. This is a history book about the Howard family, kingmakers, conspirators, criminals, nobles, seducers. The Howard family, the Dukes of Norfolk, were the wealthiest and most powerful aristocrats in Tudor England, regarding themselves as the true power behind the throne. They were certainly extraordinarily influential, with two Howard women marrying Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn and the 15-year-old Catherine Howard. But in the treacherous world of the Tudor court, no faction could afford to rest on its laurels. The Howards consolidated their power with an awesome web of schemes and conspiracies, but even they could not always hold their enemies at bay. This was a family whose history is marked by treason, beheadings, and incarceration. A dynasty whose pride and ambition secured their only downfall. I'm really interested in the Tudor time period, and so I'm really excited to get to this, and I'm very much looking forward to this buddy read with Naomi. So there you have it. That is my TBR for February, and I will see you for another video soon. Bye.